Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Doug Shulman, Commissioner of the IRS. It's an honor to be here today with Vice President Biden, who has taken the lead to make sure that the American people receive the full benefit of the Recovery Act, and Secretary Geithner, who has worked with the President, the Vice President, and others to ensure that the American economy is strong and resilient. As you know, it's tax filing season for the American people, and about 75% of the American people get refunds. So that means taxpayers are getting a lot of money from the IRS these days. This year, they're getting a record amount. We're announcing today that the average tax refund is up 10% so far this year. As of last week, the average refund was $3,036, which is $266 more than last year. For many taxpayers, this will be the biggest check that they see all year. In all, we've sent $175 billion in refunds out through March 12th. What's really telling about these numbers is that so far this year, we've sent out $6 billion more in refunds than the same period a year ago, even though we've actually received less returns because of the bad weather that hit many parts of the country. A major factor in these larger refund numbers has been the Recovery Act. From buying homes to helping people with their college expenses, the recovery provisions have increased taxpayer refunds to record levels. And this is going to continue in the weeks ahead because roughly half of the American taxpayers have not yet filed their tax returns. So for those who haven't filed yet, we want to remind everyone about the many important recovery credits and deductions that they may be eligible for this year. Let me give taxpayers a few tips for the tax filing season. First, it is really important that people take their time. The recovery provisions can mean extra cash in hardworking Americans' pockets. Don't overlook checking into things like the expanded earned income tax credit. And a common mistake we're seeing this year is people overlooking the Making Work Pay credit. So everyone should make sure to claim it. Second, people should e-file, because when they e-file, it helps catch mistakes and it helps make sure that the software or their preparer can help them find the recovery credits that they deserve. People are catching on to e-filing, and e-filing is up again this year. And finally, the fastest and best way to get your refund is to e-file with direct deposit. You can get your refund in as little as 10 days if you e-file with direct deposits. This can help Americans get access to their money more quickly. Let me close my remarks with one message to American people who are feeling stressed out at this time of year. If you're having trouble paying your taxes, please get in touch with us. You have options. Our assisters have been instructed to go the extra mile working with American taxpayers. We're even running special Saturday open houses this year starting March 27th so taxpayers can resolve any problems that they have. So with that, let me turn it over to Secretary Geithner.
Thank you. Thanks, Doug. I want to start by thanking Doug Shulman and all the dedicated officers of the IRS for their hard work in improving taxpayer service and making it easier for Americans to take advantage of the very substantial tax benefits that are in the Recovery Act. Americans are still suffering a great deal from this recession, but because the President acted so quickly and forcefully, the economy is now starting to expand again. And as the economy continues to grow, as we continue to repair the damage caused by this recession, the economy will start creating jobs again. The Recovery Act and our actions to fix the financial system were decisive in starting to turn the economy around. I know that many people think of the Recovery Act, they think about roads and bridges, they think about assistance to states to keep teachers in the classroom, they think about extended unemployment benefits. But the Recovery Act also provided nearly $300 billion in tax cuts and tax incentives. And these tax cuts are working. They're providing tax relief for 95% of working families, making it easier to buy a new home, helping municipal governments borrow to fund investment projects in your communities, encouraging businesses to expand again, and helping people pay for college tuition. The most important thing we can do to improve the economic security of Americans is to create more opportunities for good jobs and growing incomes. And one of the most effective things the government can do to help that happen is to promote a strong, dynamic private sector. Tax incentives can play a key role in this process. They work by encouraging the initiative of individuals and businesses. And that's why the Recovery Act, including tax cuts like small business expensing and bonus depreciation to help companies afford new equipment, afford new investment, tax cuts like the Making Work Pay tax credit, tax cuts like the Advanced Energy Investment Credit to help keep us at the forefront of technological innovation in energy. That's why the President's budget proposes eliminating capital gains taxes on key investments in small businesses. And that's why just last week the President signed into law new tax cuts to provide incentives to small businesses to hire new workers and to make new investments. Now, of the $300 billion in tax benefits in the Recovery Act, nearly half of that is still ahead of us. We want to make sure that Americans take full advantage of these benefits. If you just bought your first home, or you're thinking about it, you could be eligible for $8,000 in tax credits. If you replaced old windows or put new insulation in your attic, you might be able to claim $1,500 in tax credits. If you have a daughter or a son in college, you could be eligible for up to $2,500 in college tuition, college expenses per year for 4 years. Don't leave your money on the table. The more you can claim, the more money is put back into the economy, helping us grow out of this crisis. Now I have the pleasure of introducing the Vice President. He chairs the White House Task Force on Working Families, the Middle Class Task Force. He's been running the day-to-day process of making sure the Recovery Act is doing what it's supposed to do. And because of his forceful, persuasive powers with the cabinet, with governors, with elected officials across the country, this program, the most powerful program of tax cuts and investments in modern U.S. history, is moving with speed, with transparency, with efficiency to help Americans come out of this crisis. Now, the Vice President of the United States.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Look, the Commissioner has laid out what some of these tax cuts are, as well as the Secretary. I want to make an overall statement here. There are a number of aspects of the tax cuts that Secretary Geithner referred to affecting small business, investment, et cetera. And we've done an awful lot. You know, with regard to today's announcement, I'm reminded of the comment of Will Rogers, the great comedian and humorist of the 20s and 30s. He said, quote, "The difference between death and taxes is death doesn't get worse every time Congress meets." Well, today, quite frankly, the Congress, having met last year, really is actually helping, and helping in a big way. The difference this year, Mr. Secretary and Commissioner, is that because of the Recovery Act providing $300 billion in tax cuts, millions of middle-class Americans are going to get hundreds of thousands of dollars in relief from more than a dozen tax credits. Now, again, I know you all know this, but sometimes when people click on the news and they hear part of this, they'll hear tax credit, tax deduction, and it doesn't compute right away. A tax credit means this guy's going to sit there and they're going to, the computer, bounce out a check and they're going to give you money. Money's going to come back. You are not claiming something on your tax form that means you pay less tax. This means you get something back. You get something back. So I'd like to note that through March 12th, as the Commissioner pointed out, the average tax refund was a record $3,036. That's up $266. In the neighborhoods I come from, you know, it just the dread of filing your taxes, and 50% of the people still have to file them. It is actually sort of thought of, even though it's their money, it's almost thought of as like found money. It's like, God, we're going to get a break here. People are hurting. They're hurting right now. And an extra, if the average, and some is a lot more than that, some less obviously, of over $3,000 coming at a time when we're just coming out of this recession and things are beginning to move, is going to be welcome news for an awful lot of Americans. And look, hardworking folks, this extra cash in their pockets in tight times can make an astounding difference in terms of their attitudes as well. For President Obama and for me and for the whole team here, this was part of the goal we set out when we first took office. It wasn't just to rebuild the economy, which was self-evidently necessary, but also, as we rebuilt the economy, to rebuild the middle class. The middle class took a shellacking the last 2 decades, particularly from 2000 to 2007. So at the end of the day, we're going to measure the recovery that the Secretary is engineering for us here. We're going to measure the recovery at the end of the day based on how many folks are in the middle class, how many gained access, and how many are secure in being able to stay in the middle class. Look, to ease the burden for women, for men and women in working families today, it's a simple proposition. We're looking to, again, probably many of you come from neighborhoods and families like I did. It's all about the standard of living. It's all about whether or not you feel comfortable, safe, secure in your home, in your neighborhood, in your ability to take care of your elderly mother, your child when you go to work, being able to make sure that you can get your kid to college. I mean, these are the things that the middle class is all about. They're about family. They're about neighborhood. They're about having the ability to live a decent life. And so help with college tuition, buying a house or a car. This helps middle-class families not only get by, but it goes to their sense of who they are and their standard of living. And that's why we're here, first and foremost. Look, that's also why only days after being sworn in, I think it was, if not the first, one of the first announcements the President of the United States made was establishing a middle-class task force. And he asked me to chair it. And immediately I called a cabinet meeting with all the Secretary of Cabinet and said, look, here's the deal. You have a lot on your plate. We're taking office in a moment of crisis. But don't take your eye off the ball. I was a pain in the neck, I think, at the beginning. I hope not any longer. But saying, look, scrub your agency. What can be done within your agency that, in fact, can increase security for middle-class people? What is it? Well, Commerce Department is one thing, and Housing is another, and in the Treasury Department. So everybody went forward and scrubbed their agencies to what can we do to give middle-class taxpayers more security. And we dealt with it fairly swiftly. And what happened was, in the meantime, we had to deal with a housing crisis. We had to deal with a financial crisis. And less than a month after moving into the White House, we passed the Recovery Act. And that's already responsible. I don't think anybody argues about this anymore, for saving and creating over 2 million jobs. And we still got a significant way to go in terms of the act working its way through. We extended much-needed assistance to the most vulnerable people, the people who got crushed in the recession, who lost their jobs, lost their homes. We helped them with their health care. And we went to, as was pointed out here, tax credit for small businesses. 95% of working families got a tax break. So people hear a lot about the major projects, as the Secretary said, in the Recovery Act. That is new highways and high-speed rail lines, abundant renewable energy, wind and solar, all really important things. But there are many ways we've used the Recovery Act to help Americans through the tax code. And about half of the Americans, I said, have filed their taxes, which means more than half face the unenviable task, they're thinking of it, of sitting down and filing their taxes in the next couple weeks. Now look, American business, American corporate America, they have people, and they should, who scour the code to find out, to make sure that they get what they're entitled to in the tax code. A lot of hard-working Americans just have enough trouble working sometimes 2 jobs, just putting meat and potatoes on the table, just making sure they can pay their rent or pay their mortgage, and they don't focus on it. They don't have experts that are going out there and preparing their tax. That is not a criticism of those who do. Everyone's entitled to what the law provides. This is about, and what I'm going to focus on the next minute or so, is focused on average middle-class taxpayers who aren't business people. They may be business people, who are out there how can they get the most out of what is intended by Congress and the administration for them to get. We want to make it easier for them. We want to give them more breaks. And the people who have filed can still amend, and we want to make sure that Americans get every dollar they're entitled to. That's why today I'm proud to announce our new online tax saving tool, which makes it easier for millions of middle-class Americans to determine the Recovery Act benefits for which they qualify. Just log on to WhiteHouse.gov/recovery, and it's a tool that I can hardly read here, which makes it hard for people seeing it. But it is a tool to make it easy to file your taxes. It's easy to understand, and it's simple to use. And it's going to help families across the country who've been hit by this economic downturn to know exactly what tax credits and what tax benefits they're entitled to, including, but not exclusively, for those parents with a kid in college, they can get up to $2,500 in a check written by Uncle Sam sent back to them. That's a big deal. And by the way, for students who are doing it on their own, they can do the same thing. They can file and get $2,500 because they're struggling to figure out how to pay next semester's tuition. It's coming due now. Mike, I have one left in graduate school. I can tell you this is about the time when the university starts saying, hey, by the way, next semester, now. And so this is a big deal. Families struggling with their energy bills, and most middle-class families are. Well, as pointed out by the Secretary, they can get up to $1,500 in tax credits in home energy efficiency improvements, from buying certain Star appliances to putting in new windows that are high efficiency to putting in insulation. And not only do they get that credit, but the long term, they're reducing their energy bill. This is a win-win. And there's a $1,000 refundable tax credit expanded to help families hard hit by job losses. So you still will get a $1,000 tax credit. If in fact you don't have a job and you've got a couple kids or a child, you get a $1,000 tax credit. And for most of the first-time home buyers, assuming they fall within a range they're not making $300,000-400,000, they are going to get an $8,000 tax credit. And again, what's the middle class dream? Almost every middle class American dreams they're going to be able to buy a home someday, have their own home. And so tax deductions also exist on state and local fees, which can amount to hundreds of dollars for people who purchase a new vehicle. Some states have a transfer tax that can be significant, and so you can save hundreds of dollars if you bought a new vehicle and a new high-efficiency vehicle, whether or not you can get this in terms of help on your tax form. It's a lot of money in some states. No tax liability on the first $2,400 of unemployment benefits someone may have received. People who have never had to collect on insurance probably think people just get an unemployment check and that's it. Well, they pay taxes on that unemployment check. Well, the first $2,400 when you are out there having to receive unemployment benefits, it is not taxable. And up to $800, we keep talking about make work pay. I kid everybody around here and say, you know, we should speak English to people. Most people don't know what make work pay means. But when you say every individual that is getting a paycheck is going to get $400 back over the year and $800 if you're a couple. Well, maybe your employer didn't withhold it, or maybe you're self-employed. You're able now on your tax form when you file, if you haven't been getting this all along last year, which amounted to like $60, $70 a paycheck more. If you didn't get that, you can file now. And you can file, you're entitled to $400 as an individual, $800 as a couple. Look, I'd like to reemphasize, already this season, refunds are up $260 per person compared to last year. This is money that not only helps people strapped now, but it stimulates the economy. It's money back into the economy, helping it grow. It's keeping people at Dunkin' Donuts and other coffee shops employed. It's making sure that the hairdresser doesn't go broke in the local town. It's making sure that people still go to have a little bit of money to go to a movie. I mean, these are things that employ people. When this money gets poured back in the economy, people stay employed or increase employment. When the extra cash goes in the pockets of the consumers, they have an incentive to go out, buy energy-efficient windows in the neighborhood hardware store, or purchase a new hybrid or a local dealer, or finally buy the first home that they dreamed about. They're generating more economic activity when they do this, and in turn spurring more jobs and creating jobs in manufacturing, clean energy, construction, industries that are industries that we also spend a lot of time in the Recovery Act focusing on, because they're going to be the platform upon which we build this new economy. Look, I see it all across the country. I've been into, I don't know now, I think it's close to 70 cities that I've gone in throughout this country. After a little more than a year, the Recovery Act is not only working, it's working toward something, toward creating jobs in new industries, toward building a dynamic 21st century economy that's going to allow America to lead the world in the 21st century as we did in the 20th. And by cutting taxes for millions and millions of middle-class Americans, the Recovery Act is working toward helping families weather the storm that they found themselves in the middle of and get back to their former financial footing. Again, we have more information on which tax credits are available. Visit the saving tool at WhiteHouse.gov/recovery. Mr. Secretary, Commissioner, we're off to, I think, a really good start. I look forward to continuing to work with you guys to make sure that working Americans get their fair share of the tax relief that they're entitled to. This is a good thing, and I'm always happy to announce on the eve of the deadline approaching to file your taxes that there's some good news out there. So again, folks, those of you who prepare your own returns, go on to our website. Take a look. It will walk you through. The Commissioner indicated if you're having trouble paying your taxes, give the IRS a call. We want to help. People need help right now. So I thank you all. Apologize for the late start. We had something going on in the West Wing. All good, but I was a little late. So again, thank you all very, very much. Appreciate it.